Thank you, Father, and good morning, everyone. So as Father said, I'm going to talk today about the Stewardship of Treasure. Spend a little bit of time just introducing myself. I know many of you, but provide you some background on my involvement in the church. Talk a little bit about the church's perspective on the Stewardship of Treasure, and then maybe share some personal thoughts about that same theme. So I guess, to start, it's important for you to know that I was not raised Orthodox. I was introduced to the church by my wife, Stacy, while we were dating in college. And I was baptized at Holy Apostles in Westchester on June 19th, 1997. It was about a year and a half before Stacy and I were married. And I consider myself very blessed to have found the Orthodox Church. And I know I have that in common with several other people here in our community today. My wife, Stacy, and I have been members here at St. Athanasios for nearly 20 years. And prior to that, we were at Holy Apostles in Westchester. We have two boys, Andrew and Christian. My son, Andrew, is a sophomore in college at the University of Illinois. And then our younger son, Christian, he's a senior here at Naperville North, serves in the altar. He might be back there somewhere, or Sunday school at this point. Our whole family has been blessed to actively participate in the many ministries and organizations here at St. Athanasios. Stacy's been a member of Philoptos for many years. She currently serves on the board. She also sings in the choir. Our boys have been involved in various ways over the years, including Sunday school, Fanari camp, summer camps, Joy, Goya, serving as altar boys. And in preparing for this talk today, I was trying to figure out how long it's been that I've actually been a member of the Parish Council, and the truth is I had a tough time coming up with that number. It's been a long time. As far as I can figure, I think it's something like 12 or more years, and I was actually asked to join the Parish Council to fill George Berboulis' seat. Many of you know George. For those that don't, George has served our country in the Army, and at one point he was on the Parish Council, got called to active duty, and there was an opening, and I was asked to fill his seat, and here I am, 12 plus years later. I've held various different roles here on the Parish Council, including Stewardship Chairman, Assistant Treasurer, and as Father mentioned, I'm currently the Treasurer of our Parish Council. I guess, to start here, maybe just thinking about when we talk about stewardship, whether it's time or talent, like we've talked about the last couple of weeks, or whether it's treasures, like we're going to talk about today, we're talking about, taking an honest look at the things that God has given us, and then an honest look at how we can share those gifts to help those around us as well as our church. And ultimately, stewardship is about keeping God at the forefront of our thinking. And I think it's hard to discuss stewardship here in the church without first recognizing and thanking those that came before us. The founding members and families of this parish understood the importance of not just being faithful Orthodox Christians, but they also the importance of having a physical church to worship in, receive the sacraments in, gather with other faithful Orthodox for fellowship, a place to support each other and their families in the various struggles and celebrations of life. A small group of immigrants who arrived in the Aurora area knew the importance of these things, and through the giving of their time, their talent, and importantly their financial treasures, which certainly were not abundant, they started St. Athanasios in 1965. These founding members and their families didn't have much, but what they did have, they happily shared with the church. And what a beautiful example of stewardship. And look at us now. These meager treasures that they returned to the church have grown abundantly over the past nearly 60 years. What started in a tiny building in downtown Aurora ultimately brought us to our current location here at 1855 East 5th Avenue. Over the years, we've all shared in further supporting, growing, and beautifying this church through the sharing of our treasures with our parish. We only need to look around to see that we are surrounded by the saints, these holy icons, as well as the many relics that we have been blessed with here in our church. We're all brought here through the generous donation and sharing of your financial treasures. The many renovations that the facility has undergone over the years, including the narthex, the Sunday school wing, St. Matthew's Hall, almost every corner of this facility are a result of the sharing of our financial treasures. When it comes to not only the special projects, but also those in need, our parish has always been openly generous with sharing what we have. And as we look towards the future, You have heard much about the strategic planning process that we are going through, as well as the vision for where we want to be as a parish. So part of that vision that includes being what we call stewardship independent. And so what this means is that our stewardship giving, so what we give on an annual basis in our pledge, fully supports the operating budget of the church. The budget that we just approved in General Assembly several Sundays ago includes expenses of $705,000. This is the cost to operate the facility here as well as our parish, which includes things like utilities, maintenance, office supplies, personnel, dues to the Archdiocese, and other expenses. Today, our pledged stewardship donations are roughly $300,000, or approximately 43% of that number. If we include candle donations, the baskets that we pass on Sundays, and other seasonal donations, this number increases to about 60%. So we still fall short of covering our total operating expenses here in the church. The remaining 40% of the money that's needed to operate the church comes through outside fundraising activities like the festival, the golf outing, and other type of fundraising. So the question becomes, can we as a parish afford to rely on whether or not we have a successful festival or a golf outing to determine whether or not we'll be able to pay our bills on an annual basis? Ultimately, the church is all of our responsibility and not the responsibility of those who attend our festivals. During 2020, when the church was closed due to COVID, we were not able to have a lot of these outside fundraising activities. And although we scaled back on many of our expenses, we did not cover the operating expenses to run the church. We actually fell short that year by about $75,000. And so I share these figures with you to help you better understand where it is we'd like to be in the future. There's a concerted focus in the metropolis to encourage all parishes to make efforts to work towards what we talked about earlier, this idea of stewardship independence. And what we've been talking about in the parish council meeting and these strategic planning sessions is that something really special happens when you get to that point. So here's the vision. When our church becomes stewardship independent, instead of slicing euros to raise money to pay our utility bills, we can instead have fundraisers to support and grow our ministries. We can instead have fundraisers to support families in our community around us. Or instead, we can have fundraisers to reinvest in our community here at St. Athanasius. The possibilities are almost endless. Think of the things that we could do. Think of the people that we could help both inside and outside of our community. Stewardship independence becomes a very powerful concept. So as we leave here today, we should ask ourselves, really challenge ourselves, to spend some time thinking and praying about how we currently support the church through our stewardship pledge. We should think about what we can do to move our church towards that goal of stewardship independence. We should ask ourselves, is there something more we can give in our pledge during 2023? Maybe we can only give a little bit more, or maybe we, after thinking and praying about it, maybe we realize we can double our stewardship on an annual basis. The amount that each individual and family can do will be different because the resources that each individual or family has are different. So ultimately, I'm not here this morning to ask you for anything, but rather to share with you this concept and vision of stewardship independence in our church. And so for me, I like to think about it like this. I've been blessed in many ways to find orthodoxy. I've been blessed to be able to raise my family here in this church. My family and I have been blessed to participate in the many sacraments and ministry our church has to offer. And I've been blessed to get to know many of you, gain many relationships in this community. And I'm blessed to be able to be here most Sundays, participate in the liturgy. And for me, there's no real price that you can put on that. So when I think about the treasures that God has entrusted with me and sharing those treasures to support our beloved St. Athanasios, I feel an obligation to those that have come before us, to those that have helped build this church, to our children, and to the future generations to come. And ultimately, and most importantly, sharing our treasures as well as our time and talent is what God has instructed us to do. Because every gift that we have is from Him. And the book of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 8 tells us, freely you have received, so freely give. So with that, I want to thank you for spending a little bit of time with you this morning, sharing these thoughts. I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and all the blessings that this holiday season has to offer. Thank you.